January 2005. The new year passed and I returned again to the hospital. For some reason on that day I didn't go to the 4th floor, but instead to a conference room, was made to go. There, with my father and a doctor, I heard many things. It was that thing called notification, probably. They had an extremely indirect way of speaking, but in the end it seemed like I was going to die. I see. That was why I was only able to reply with that. I couldn't find other words. From when I entered until I left the room, that was all they said. Accepting my answer, the doctor moved the ballpoint pen in his hand. Most likely it was the paperwork for the hospice. To the very end, he was very businesslike. My father was very much the same. It was such a simple thing. That was my honest impression. And then, between that day and the next, I changed from the 4th to the 7th floor, from a 6-patient room to a single. And also, this 7th floor itself was a bit different from the other floors. For one thing, the floors were sparkling, the ceilings were much higher and much broader. Inside the rooms it was extremely clean. The large windows seemed designed to let in lots of sunlight. However, the windows only opened a teeny bit. When I tried measuring, it was just slightly smaller than allowing your head pass through. The other thing was, the color of the ID bracelets changed. Since the day I was admitted, a Villa bracelet was always wrapped around my wrist. Upon it was my name and blood type. That color had changed from blue to white. High ceilings, white vinyl bracelets, windows that could only open 15 centimeters. The day I was transferred to the 7th floor, it was when the boring New Year's programs were still being broadcast. The time I met her for the first time was always at the very beginning of the year. Winter 2005, the 7th floor. Across the hall, facing the nurse's station, was a lounge-like place. Left in that unpopulated place were a number of sofas, folding chairs, and a large television. On that, 20-inch CRT, a meaningless New Year's program running. Watching that boring television, with an equally bored expression, was some girl. She had a small build and wore pink pajamas. Her wrist had, just like I did, a white bracelet. Hair that was to her hips left an impression. Hey you, is that interesting? There wasn't with any particular deep meaning. Since there was no one around, I tried speaking to her profile. Nope, not particularly. That was all that she replied with. She didn't even turn towards me, even though I had spoken to her. Perhaps she had absolutely no interest in me. She continued to gaze at the television with a bored look. If it's boring, you don't have to watch it. As I thought that, I also sat down in a folding chair. And sitting next to her, I gazed at the television. There was nothing else to do. Nothing else I could do. Quietly, we continued to gaze at the television. On the screen were the usual New Year's programs, pathetic impersonations and parlor tricks. Occasionally, ringing out, the host's stupidly high-pitched laugh in the pure white sunlit room. It dryly reverberated. Say, you. Suddenly the girl spoke to me while gazing at the television. You're on which time? Which time? What does that mean? Coming here, the 7th floor. Sorry, I don't understand the meaning of the question. I see. It's your first. It seemed that at my inability to understand what she was saying, she had up and gotten satisfied with that judgment. Well, there's no one else around, so it's my duty. Duty? There's that kind of rule. While nodding, she added that there is a rule for someone to teach people who first come here to the 7th floor. Right now, I know nothing about anything. And as if ignoring me, the girl slowly began speaking. Well, listen closely, alright? The girl's words came by ones and twos. They were slightly different compared to the doctor's speech that I had heard up until coming here. In that businesslike speech from the doctor, it was said that this was a place to await the advancement of medicine. It was also called a place for healing the heart. Most likely, broadly speaking, that was probably correct. However, from what the girl said, that was a fakehead. This 7th floor was within the hospital, but was the only place that didn't give treatments. Simply a place to wait for the end of life. That's what the girl said. That's what I also felt and had the same perception. I'm on my 2nd time, you see. 2nd time? What's that? Coming to this place. And the girl taught me. This place called the 7th floor, to be here from the moment of admission all the way until dying. First of all, apparently didn't happen. Even if being cured was impossible, if your health becomes better, then they would allow you to come. They would allow you to go home once. But after a while, and it turns bad, once again you come back. Among those comings and goings, eventually you die. The place where life ran out, it only differed between home and the 7th floor. Unfailingly, one would die in either of those. It seemed no one has ever escaped that. It was with that meaning that the girl had meant by saying it was her 2nd time. Well, I'll only say this once. So from here on, listen well. Still looking at the dull screen, the girl continued speaking even more. The subject being not about what time the lights would be out, and the normal sorts of topics exchanged between admitted patients. She taught me about totally different things. On the 3rd time you're giving a temporary discharge, prepare yourself. There's never a 4th. You won't be going home anymore. If there's a time that you want to run away, go not to Station A, but towards Station B. Don't eat anything. That is the shortest path. It will end with the least burden to your family. It was only full of these sorts of topics that gives one pause. Most likely, it was only the people who came to hear. Only those who participated in moving towards death. These were the things that they had continued to pass down. Was the duty you mentioned this? Yes, that's right. Someday you tell it to newcomers too, okay? With those final words, the girl slowly stood up, gently. Her long hair swayed and brushed the tip of my nose. Well, it's time for taking temperature, so... And then, just like that, with her back facing me, she began walking towards the hall. I was left alone in that place, with the laughing voice from the screen and the white flowers decorating around the window. In the end, the girl never once looked in my direction.